Hello again and welcome to Pearl Magazine. Tonight, how competition in university admissions means those who can afford it seek professional guidance to get into top schools, plus tips on applying to colleges. First up, the Greater Bay Area development has attracted many Hong Kong startups hoping to venture into GBA cities. But according to a recent survey, inadequate funding is a major challenge. Difficulty in getting investors has been heightened by the pandemic. Reporter Alice Khan finds out where startups can find funding and what criteria investors are looking for before they're willing to pump money into a company. This is Hong Kong's first virtual reality game center. Unlike other video game centers, customers here don't play solo.
Our game designers allow people playing like in the parties, so we have many people to come to play together, maybe so we can try to collaborate, to fight for the dinosaurs together, or we could compete with each other as well.
Eric Young set up this VR gaming center with his friend in 2019, targeting a growing gaming segment.
The difference of the VR games is it brings you to have a very immersive experience to every gamers. We provide a lot of aid to help you to bring you more immersive. Say, the vibration floor, maybe the sound environment in the area. So, Alice, do you want to try our game?
Yes.
Okay, so here is one of our machines. So, of course, we have Google. We have the shooting guns here, and here you can choose different games here, like the dinosaurs. Okay, you can see right now we are collaborating. I'm on your right hand side here. So pay attention to the dinosaurs that is going to running out in any angle.
Valuation of Eric's company is at roughly $80 million US. His R&D development team is in Taiwan, and he has sales offices in the US, Japan, and Malaysia. Unfortunately, the launch of Eric's company coincided with the COVID-19 pandemic.
During the social restriction time, we lost 100% of our income for our shop. We cannot open, and we still have to pay the rent. You still have to retain the staff.
Luckily, this venture capital investor, Hendrik Sin, saw potential and invested $100 million in Eric's company in 2020.
We have a lot of interest in the latest cutting-edge technology. So it is a VR company that do and invent the hardware and software on VR games. So I think the entrepreneurs, the owners of this company has a lot of passion.
Help a lot, at that time, because the way that we develop our game, we need to invest power to our delivery, and we have to also pay to the factory before we receive the payment from the customer.
Hendrik has offered business advice and network contacts, but he also has some criteria the startup must fulfill.
In case that we fail to comply that kind of criteria, he has the right to ask us to buy back all his share in original cost, as well as together with the interest.
Now that the border is reopened, Eric wants to expand his business to the GBA.
We have to open several more shop in the GBA area first, and then we expand it to the other first-tier city in China, and that will be an explosive growth.
Eric says Hendrik will assist him in mainland China.
Running a game company in China, you do have to acquire some kind of, we call gaming permit. The accounting policy, the financial policy is quite different. Even the taxation issue.
Hendrik founded a venture capital fund in Shenzhen in 2015. As a director of Cyberport, he also co-founded China's first mobile game company in 2009, which he listed on the Nasdaq in 2012. 2 years later, in 2014, company capitalization reached unicorn level. Now Hendrik wants to help Hong Kong startups.
Capital, a lot of people can offer, but experience in entrepreneurship, it is limited because we have resolved a lot of challenges ourselves, like how to manage company, how to give incentive scheme, how to do fundraising, how to do sort of business expansion.
He has invested in 20 companies over the past 3 years of the COVID pandemic.
Team is most important, and also they have complementary skills. Also, I think the business itself, whether they are, I personally like a lot of disruptive innovation, really can bring a difference to the society, also the market, and also the business strategy.
Hendrik encourages startups to venture into the GBA.
GBA has more people. In terms of population, it has a bigger population size.
In December, the government promulgated the Hong Kong Innovation and Technology Development Blueprint, aiming to develop 30 unicorn companies in Hong Kong over the next 10 years. Apart from the private venture capital, universities in Hong Kong also offer funding to help startups. In 2021, the City University of Hong Kong launched Hong Kong Tech 300. The goal is to help their students form 300 startups within 3 years.
More than 500 teams already received the seed funds. They can come back to apply for the angel fund. Angel fund is a 1 million investments. More than 100 startups already received the angel funds. So hopefully, some of them can further develop, and then in the coming future will become the unicorns.
Dr. Lowe says it takes 7 years for a startup to become a unicorn.
From the lab into a protocols into startups. After 2 years, they need to think about to enter into the GBA markets. They need to have a growing up of the market. Then maybe after 3 years, when they accumulate quite a certain market percentage, market share, then it's the time they need to think about to come back to Hong Kong, make use of the Hong Kong financial framework to become IPO. We will focus to support those startups with the very high-tech elements. Second is the market volatility. We will also take into consideration about the social impact.
Ron Ng worked on a tech project to monitor water quality when he did his PhD. In 2021, he set up an incubated company with the help of CityU.
Can you show me your product?
Yes. This is our product.
What's that?
This is a sensor.
Then what's this a sensor for?
This is to determine the water oxygen level. That is the oxygen content in oxygen amount in the water.
Okay, can you show me then?
Yeah.
Why do you develop this sensor?
Because we want to help the agriculture to reduce their cost for water oxygen monitoring. Because oxygen is very important for fish, and therefore fish farmers have to pay much attention to monitor the water oxygen level all the time. For the current method, and this is required frequent maintenance, maybe 300,000 Hong Kong dollars for one sensor. But for our sensors, it is small, and also it is cheap, and also it can require least maintenance. It is only 1,000.
Ron has already tested his sensor with fish farms in Hong Kong. Because his sensor has social impact, he was awarded funding.
Without funding, actually, it is impossible for us to convert our research output from the city, from the university to a product. Luckily, we received the funding support from Hong Kong Tech 300. This is organized by CityU, and it provides the lead what we want, including the seed fund of 100,000 Hong Kong dollars, and also the angel investment fund of 1 million Hong Kong dollars.
Ron says the university also helped him obtain a patent. He plans to expand to the GBA market.
We noticed that the fish market in the GBA and also in China is so large, comparatively larger than in Hong Kong. The Great Bay Area is growing. Therefore, the demand of water quality monitoring is increasing.
To help Hong Kong startups expand into China, City University collaborates with GBA cities to support them.
They can provide the free office, the incubation supports, the service, as well as some matching funding. For example, for those startups can receive the 1 million angel fund from Hong Kong Tech 300. When they go to the Shenzhen, for example, Futian, the Futian government will also give them 1-to-1 funding matching. That means they will receive another 1 million funding from the local government.
When we come back, university consultants are seeing a boom as competition to enter schools overseas heats up. Plus tips graduating students can use when applying to colleges. Stay with us. Welcome back to Pearl Magazine. Hong Kong is one of the most competitive places in the world when it comes to higher education. Less than half of university applicants get places in schools in the city. Some students look to study at top schools overseas, and with competition high, it's become the norm to get the help of college admission consultants. Carrie graduated in 2022 from the University of Pennsylvania, one of the top 10 ranked schools in the U.S. With high marks throughout high school, it would seem she could easily get into a top school overseas, but competition and pressure is high on secondary students.
It was probably one of the most stressful periods in my life. When I was in secondary school, that was probably the biggest thing in my horizons. I was like, if I don't get into a good college, I'm not gonna get a good job, I'm not gonna have a good career, and everything's just gonna spiral from there.
Her parents sought the help of a university consultant that specializes in guiding students wanting to enter the top schools in the US and UK.
Hong Kong has at least 10 to 15 very good schools. And within those 10 to 15 schools, there's anywhere from 100 to 150 kids in the graduating class. Within that batch, there's another 20 to 30 kids who are very strong contenders for top universities. But at the end of the day, the Ivy Leagues or Oxford, Cambridge, or even Hong Kong medical schools, for instance, they're only going to take less than 50 to 60 of these kids, as a whole.
Ronald says making yourself stand out among your peers is the challenge when applying to schools overseas. His company has been in the business for 20 years and tends to work with high-achieving students.
We work with relatively affluent families from mainland China and Hong Kong. So we work with about 30 kids every year for university consulting. We tend to tell parents in advance and families in advance that you might want to only use us if you're very serious about going to the top schools.
He says their fees run from $300,000 to $800,000 for a basic package, with no exam prep or summer programs, depending on how many schools a candidate is applying to.
The nature of university admissions has gotten more competitive every year. And so for the most part, strong academics and strong admissions exam grades are required. You can't even get away from it. At the end of the day, when you apply for the US universities, really it's your application essays on top of the grades that gets you accepted. So assuming that you have the minimum scores and stuff, it's really what differentiates you versus all the other kids.
He says they help guide students when it comes to targeting which schools they want to apply to, their majors, and presenting themselves in a way that stands out.
They just played a really big role in figuring out what I want to be in my application and helping me put that on paper. A big part of it was kind of brainstorming, analyzing where my strengths and weaknesses were, where I can make my weaknesses a strength instead. So it was just, they kind of use what they already have and what I already bring to the table, but make it look more put together. I think also what Capstone helped me do was kind of figure out what schools would be my reach schools, which schools are my target schools, and then which schools would be more safeties. So it's a more well-rounded kind of group of applications.
And in the cutthroat world of education, is consulting becoming the norm?
I'd say a majority of my friends did use these services, and yeah, I think everyone found it quite helpful.
Ronald says that while mainland parents have always targeted U.S. Ivy Leagues in the past, there has been a shift of interest to the UK.
What's changed is actually there is more interest in general from all the parents we're talking to consider, and the kids as well, obviously, to consider UK universities. One of the biggest reasons definitely is a safety issue. Obviously, there's a lot more news about gun crime. There's a lot more news about more obvious, I think, violent acts of racism, especially towards the Asian demographic across the US. So a lot more families are wary of that, and so they're more open to considering UK universities as an alternative option.
And it's not just the traditional markets of the West that are seeing a change of trends in college applications. Jay Liu is the founder of another education consultancy in Hong Kong and mainland China. Jay says he's seen a rise in inquiries from students looking to study within the region.
Before the 2019, more Chinese students from mainland, they prefer to apply university in the US and the UK. But now they will think more about studying in Hong Kong, like Macau and Singapore, because their parents want them to study and live near to them. And also, I think they have some like geopolitical things, yes, between China and the US.
He adds that rankings of universities in Asia have been rising, so students in both the mainland and Hong Kong now consider studying in these countries.
Malaysia, it became the emerging destination for many Chinese students. They think Malaysia provides very good quality, high education, and for example, the University of Malaysia is ranked very high according to the QS ranking. And also students will think about Philippines and Thailand.
Another trend he's seeing from Hong Kong students is a rise in those looking to study in China. He says inquiries about applying to mainland schools have gone up by 20% at his company.
For those students have very good academic performance, they will try to apply for those top universities in China, like Peking and Tsinghua University as well, of course. But many students, they will like to apply college in Guangzhou. And I also noticed that some students would like to apply the medical degree in China, especially for the traditional Chinese medicine, because they can have a license to be a Chinese medical doctor in Hong Kong after graduation.
The Chinese government has made it easier for Hong Kong secondary school graduates to enter Chinese universities by letting them use their DSE scores and bypassing the national college entrance examination that millions of mainland students must take.
The policy is much friendly to them. They don't have very good academic performance, but they still have many good universities to study. So this is a very good chance for them. The Chinese government want more students from those like Taiwan, Macau, and Hong Kong. And they want the student to study there, live there, and experience their life in mainland China and see what happenings in China.
With the education industry becoming more competitive, even the UK, the top destination for students from Hong Kong and China, is feeling the pressure. The British Council reports China's share of total study visas fell to 24%, the lowest since 2011, and down sharply from 45% in the past 3 years. The report also acknowledges the competition with higher education institutions within Asia, with Chinese students making up the majority of international students at top-tier schools in the UK, marking them as quality students. The universities there will have to shift their focus to boosting the quality of students it recruits rather than the numbers, according to the report. Meantime, competition to get into top universities continues, fueling demand for consultancies, as both Ron and Jay have seen a rise in inquiries from a wider demographic. But what about the students?
What I really wanted to tell myself, if I could go back in time, would be Like, don't put so much pressure on yourself, you know, like, it's not the end of the world. I was so stressed during that time. And I would really, really like to tell myself, like, it's okay. But I probably wouldn't believe myself if I heard my future self telling me that anyway.
Getting into a university of your choice is tough, so here are some expert tips.
Think about the easiest pathway to a top university. And so, for instance, it doesn't matter if you enter Harvard for East Asian studies, because you can always change majors afterwards, right? So what's more important to the family is that you get into Harvard.
In line with this, think about the demographic of those schools. For females, a STEM-based major like engineering may be the best way in, since there tends to be more males, and schools try to balance the number of male and female enrollment. Conversely, Asian males will stand out in an application pool for drama or English literature. As Ron says, you can change your major once you're in if you want to. Second, think about how to make yourself stand out in your group of peers. So look at your classmates to see what differentiates yourself from them, and then present this in the best light in your applications. When it comes to the best schools, everyone has top grades, so your essay is one way to stand out. Jay Liu, another education consultant, says students need to consider location as well.
They need to think, for example, the location of the university. If you want to stay in those countries and find internship or jobs, a large cities would be better.
He says for those who want to pursue further studies or become scholars, university towns are a good option. He adds that looking at where one might have an edge over other applicants, such as school quotas which might be unfilled, is another strategy. Getting into a top university in China as a Hong Kong graduate is easier than it is for mainlanders. It's also easier than getting into a top Hong Kong school. Also, rankings of universities in Asia are going up, so graduates should consider looking within the region at some of the highly ranked schools, particularly those in Malaysia, Singapore, Philippines, and Thailand. On top of that, costs might be lower than studying in the West. Finally, have a safety school where you know your grades and profile will definitely get you in. You can always choose to transfer schools if you want after a year or two. That's our show for this week. Join us on Pearl Magazine, same time next week. Bye for now.